Oh, and
But
I
yeah,
understand. We got people rolling in, so we're alive now, and always a pleasure to have you here, Arturo.
yeah,
I called it. We're mad as hell. We're not gonna take it anymore. It's crazy. That's from Network, and you go. You know that clip? Have you watched that movie?
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
pretty much encapsulates it, and it's just sort of like he's just like newscast. He's like, I'm mad as hell, and it's sort of
yeah,
like we're in one of those moments again.
yeah. It's mad as hell. I'm not gonna take it anymore.
Oh. But the burnout, like you said, the burnout's real, and I'm gonna deliberately take tomorrow off. And I just honestly though, it like I mean, I was just talking now, and it's like I could go through the thing I did. Like I actually downloaded a transcript of one of my talks. It was like 150 pages.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it's broken up with the timestamps and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'm just like, there's a lot of this I need to cut out and like expand on, and it's almost like there's so much. It's like I don't have time to do everything I want to do.
yeah. No, I feel that. I'm the same way with this weekend. Like, my wife's been out of town for a couple weeks. Family emergency sort of type situation, and she's coming back into town today, this evening. So I'm like, this weekend is just going to be chill. We're
Yeah, I hope
gonna go to my
everybody's well.
grandson's t-ball game. I went last week. My wife wasn't here. We went to the t-ball game. Yeah, he's 5, so it was fun. A little
Yeah.
chaotic. Bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds running around.
Well, and you know what? Yeah, I love that. My kids, my eldest is in forensic. She does swimming, so I haven't got to go to any of her meets for a while. My youngest is in basketball. I think people have a pretty good sense of where I'm at. Because sometimes, like people that I've never talked to about politics, they'll just come and be like, "That motherfucker," and I'm just like, "Buddy," and I'm just like, "So it's that obvious, is it?" Well, maybe it's because I
Hilarious.
stand there, like, loudly speaking in Spanish and, like, staring at the crowd like, "What are you gonna do about it? I'm speaking
Right.
Spanish." I tell my daughter,
Yeah.
"Quítale la pelota, quítalo," and the whole we'll be in, like, some northern Wisconsin, one of these gyms, like, straight out of the movie Hoosiers, and it's, like, just all these white faces. I'm like, "Quítale la pelota,
Yeah.
atácala," and, like, it'll go quiet, and I'm loud anyway. I'm louder than the national anthem, and,
Yeah.
but nobody comes and tells me to be quiet, so
Yeah, I'm the same way at these sports things, man. I can be loud and belligerent and all that. But yeah, somebody said that it's not very athletic T-ball for 5-year-olds, but it is entertaining,
oh,
and it is,
man.
it is. So, like, when a kid hits the ball and it goes out into, like, out in the field, every kid that's supposed to be playing defense just converges on the ball. Like, all 7
Yeah.
kids dog pile on the ball. It's hilarious.
It is so great. That was the same way with basketball, and I've been watching and helping these kids since they were in 3rd grade, and yeah, it's like, there's the whole team, like, both teams are like this back up
Yeah,
like, nobody even thinks it's like, walk over there, get a pass,
right.
but now, like, last year, I was taking them out for street ball, and I'm just like, "You guys, I want you to protect yourselves." And I'm just like, okay, because I was playing with them. It's like, if I am going to do a layup, follow me. Like, do not give up a layup. And most of them, I mean, they're just nice girls. But there were a couple, they were just like, I'm like, all right, I'm like, you're going to take it back just one step. That's good. One of them she clobbered me, and then she's just like, "Mm." She just got in my face. I'm actually teaching them, though, to have like a mean face. I got one of
Yeah.
these one of these girls has just got this baby face. I'm like, "Give me your mean face." She's like, "Arr," and it was like the cutest thing ever. I'm just like, "Okay, we'll
You ever
work
see
on that."
you ever see that movie? You ever see that movie, Let's Go to Prison?
Oh,
The one
yeah.
he's trying to be mean, he looks like he's trying to take a dump.
Yeah, the toilet wine, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's good. Yeah, let's make some toilet wine.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, man. Oh, boy. Yeah, I tell you. I had an interview today, and I gotta have you talk to this woman. She's organizing the citizens impeachment. There's a group of like 100 and some congressional candidates. I got to get you more into that too, like a couple more of these congressional conversations, just because it's like there's so many out there, and I'm just feeling. Are you feeling this too? Where I have more and more conversations with people now, and it's like they've approached the problem from the other side of the hill, and they can finish what I'm saying. It's like somebody's solving a problem philosophically and somebody's solving it mathematically, and then we get together, and it's like, oh my god, it feels like the loop is getting closed. Like people are starting to recognize what's happening. Are you getting a sense of that too, or not?
Yeah, I do. I do get the sense of that, and you're seeing a lot of shift in. in just public perception about a lot of things. Anti-imperialist stuff, anti-war stuff, the anti-starving Cuba stuff.
Oh, fuck.
There's all these things where I am starting to see a shift. Where I get worried though is where a lot of the candidates on the Democrat side right now
Ah,
aren't picking up on it. Obviously
yeah.
Republicans are nowhere near these ideas that are growing online. But I think I saw an interview with Gavin Newsom that he did for
Ah,
Politico, and he had said something about how we should make military service compulsory.
oh, fuck.
How that, and he's trying to suggest that that would somehow unify the country. Honestly, that right there will cost him the election. These ideas of, like, for example, backing Israel without question, you know, and kind of being quiet about what's going on with Iran right now. Like a lot of Democrats, like this whole thing about the war powers resolution against Iran and how they're trying to stall it until April for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It just goes to show to me, it just shows me that a lot of Democrats, like the Schumers, for example,
Yep.
and Hakeem Jeffries, like they're for this war.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're opposed to Trump doing it unilaterally, but I'm pretty convinced that if they held it to a vote right now, all the party leadership would probably side with Trump on this, and that to me that's bothersome.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. Like I don't see there's not a lot being done as far as like trying to hold some of these people accountable. So boat strikes, right? They're obviously illegal.
Yeah.
And some have classified it as war crimes. And I understand why they have, because it falls in that category. I don't see anybody anywhere in the world at all, let alone the United States, trying to hold anybody accountable. Not Hegseth, not a general, not an admiral, not anybody. And I just think, I don't know. I think there's this passivity about it, where they just want to just let it go. And I can't accept that.
Like,
As a Cuban American who's watching my people suffer,
yeah.
I can't accept that, at all. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you've been on my mind a lot lately with, I mean, just the murders, the United States murdering people with cutting power and people dying, and so my heart goes out there, and it's infuriating, and I that's why my article today was on blue MAGA. That's my term for them. They
Yeah.
are every bit as bad as MAGA is, and I keep saying I always go back. In 2020, we gave blue MAGA all the power they needed to stop. They always want to blame the voters. It's always us. They promise us. It's the same line about how, well, one day in America, if you work hard enough, you'll be a millionaire too, and then you won't have to suffer anymore. And that's a lie because nobody ever gets that. Nobody gets that rich.
Right.
And then Blue MAGA is like, well, if you just got enough of us to have power, then we would change these things. Then we give them the power. We've seen it. They don't do anything, and they're even right now, like we keep seeing all those defections where every single time the Republicans want something, 4 or 5 Democrats, and it's always different ones. They switch. Oh, okay, we'll just do it. And yeah, that's why I think but people are getting mad on this different level. It's to the point now, and I was just thinking about this when I went in because the other day I wanted to tell you this story. I picked up my daughter. She'd gone down to state for forensics or something, and
Mm.
so I picked her up at like 9 o'clock at night. She was exhausted. I'm driving home. Oh, get pulled over. Why are we getting pulled over? And the dog was beside me, so I'm like, "Oh shit, they're gonna shoot my dog," because
Yeah.
I brought the dog. My daughter's in the back. Well, he's like, "Oh, we're pulling you over because we couldn't read your license plate very well. You have to go get it." Like, motherfucker, it's like, just because you can still read what the number is, just send me a letter. There's no need. So they eventually let me go. But my daughter, she was like on the drive home, she's just like, and this, I don't know, I even know how to feel about this. I don't know how to process what she said, but she said, "Well, I'm glad it was me." And I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Cause, and of my wife and of my other daughter, my eldest daughter has the lightest skin." And that's what she said. She's like, "I have the lightest skin. So if the police are going to pull us over, I'm glad it was me." And I'm just like, you don't have to take that on yourself, but and it's not, I guess it's things we've talked about, but she knows. It's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, I guess she's aware of her privilege. What is your response to that? I don't know how to feel about that. What do you
You know, I mean, she's not wrong, right?
Yeah,
And that's the sad part is that she's not wrong. And it's almost you can almost say it's a sort of a trauma type of response, right? I don't know your daughter. I
yeah,
don't know if she's been through any kind of trauma or anything, but it's sort of like, you know, you see these things on TV. You've read all the reporting and you know how black people are disproportionately targeted, how ICE is going after Latinos, and you know they're racially profiling people. And I mean, her awareness of that is something we should be proud of. But it is a sad commentary into about society. I commend her for thinking in that way, but um, it's sad that she has to. And in
yeah,
the place that we're in the place where we're at today, you know, after the whole Black Lives Matter thing, you know, the I call them the civil rights protests of 2020. You know, that was supposed to be a racial reckoning, supposed to be where people learn, supposed to be change, and
yeah,
frankly, it's just gotten worse. You know, ever since then, you know, police murders have only increased every year. We're setting records year after year. And you know, this year with Trump in office and ICE acting the way it's acting and Border Patrol bringing its brand of violence to our streets, you're starting to see our police act that way.
mhm,
You know, and here in Houston, you know, we're the fourth largest city in the world. We have police shootings, right? It's not crazy all the time, but in the last few months, it's been pretty high. I mean, in just the last week, we've had three. You know, there's a cop in critical condition today
yeah,
because he got into a shootout with somebody. He killed the perpetrator, you know, and it's just nonstop. So
yeah,
I think these aggressive type of tactics, you know, we even saw it in the airport where
yeah,
they attacked that one lady in front of her kid. I mean,
uh,
normalizing the and that's the whole point of putting these guys in airports, right? They're normalizing this. And you know, a lot of people are freaked out about it when you go to the airport and you see all these ICE agents, especially with long guns and shit. But, you know, I keep telling people that this is what it's like in black and brown communities when cops come and they just occupy space and they're just sitting there waiting to start some shit.
yep,
And
yep,
whether it's you glancing at the guy the wrong way or him mouthing off or vice versa, it always escalates into something. And that's how you end up with these conviction rates where black people are the most exonerated people in the country,
yeah,
often falsely convicted for murders and all these other things. And even these drug raids where warrants, you know, the evidence for
yeah,
warrants were manufactured, no knock raids, all this stuff. It's just what we're seeing now is an escalation. And um,
yeah,
I hate that your daughter has to go through that, but I'm glad that there's an awareness there because if she's aware, then so are her friends, then so are
yes,
her, you know what I mean? And
yes,
that's where this change begins to happen. I think this is all part of this ideological change of perspective about all these
yes,
things that we're seeing.
yeah. Thank you for that, Arturo.
No, yeah,
And she applied too. I'm so proud of her. She applied to be the student representative on the school
that's
board.
awesome.
And there's only 8, I think, that applied, and she's bilingual, and she got accepted into her college program. She's taking college courses next year. We're multinational. We're unapologetic about that, you know?
Right.
We have our roots in Peru, and, yeah, like I said, it's important for me to just speak Spanish loudly. I wanna make a couple notes here. Annalisa Brunner joined. You're always so welcome. I haven't published a replay yet, but I talked to Annalisa with Will on Wednesday.
Mm,
She had family. She's written a segment in this book. I think one of her relatives wrote about the Tulsa Race Massacre, and talking with
mm,
Annalisa was just it was unbelievable. When I share that, she spoke. It sounded like poetry to me, and I would just it's empowering. These wonderful people that I see. I see Natasha here, MJ, and yeah, I mean, and Natasha was sharing a story about her son and the nightmare he had about ice, and I mean, it's on all of our kids' mind, you know, and they have the burden we're putting on our kids. And at some point, we spend all this time worrying about the feelings of these predators in positions of power, you know, like, oh, we're not supposed to talk about the fact that when you abuse people and exploit them, it makes you feel bad about yourself. So that's what they tell us. So we're not supposed to talk about that. And yet we never spend any time talking about the fact that our kids are afraid for their mother and their sister, and you know, just because they know, oh well, those people are being targeted. They're aware of that, like you said. And just at some point, like when I went in, I was telling that story. When I went into the DMV, it's like, why am I even here? You know, and it's like there's some asshole's authority behind the desk, and they're going to be kind of a dick to me. And it's
Mhm.
just like, at some point, it's like that authority only exists because I allow it to exist. And it feels like we're at this fragmented thing where it's just like this bullshit you're trying to pull. Your power comes from the consent of the governed, you know? And it's like we talk about a labor strike and all these other things. I'm still saying peacefully, I'm just not going to consent to this bullshit anymore. I guess we're just kind of evolving into what that actually means
Yeah.
as we kind of, but I think the system is just going to collapse and then we're gonna, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think a lot of it, I've been doing a lot of anti-imperialism work lately, obviously, because of Cuba and things. And, I've always talked about how police brutality and what we do in foreign affairs and what happens at home are all connected. And how, most of it is connected to Christian white nationalism and, the idea of dominion and control and power and all these things. And I think that the anti-imperialist movement is actually starting to feed into the domestic areas of our lives. For example, I've seen a lot of people say I'm tired of paying for Israel's healthcare.
Yeah, yeah,
Frankly,
yeah,
I am too. That's part of the anti-imperialism work. Because that's part of imperialism. We're subsidizing essentially a colony that will serve as, a military launch point for us in the Middle East. And, Cuba is militarily strategic for the United States. That we could lock down the Gulf of Mexico if we had Cuba, and if we had control of Venezuela. If you draw the line from Florida to Cuba to Venezuela, boom, you close the Gulf of Mexico. Now you can do what Iran is doing in the Strait of Hormuz. So, there's a lot of these things that are interconnected like that. And I think that, when you see how our kids are being traumatized by what's happening because they see it, right? There's no long we as parents can't filter everything our kids see anymore. You know what I mean? We can't.
no,
When I was a kid, if something traumatic happened or something and my parents didn't want to see it, they'd make me leave the room so I didn't see the TV,
yeah,
or something like that. We don't have that freedom anymore. And in a sense, that's a good and it's a double-edged sword. It's good and bad, right? Like our kids could be subjected to all kinds of crazy shit, like the whole lawsuit with Facebook recently. But at the same time, they're also being exposed to reality, the reality of the world, and that, Nazis are everywhere.
yeah,
No matter where you go, you can't
yeah,
hide from them. Fascists are everywhere. Warmongering is everywhere. It comes from all sides of the political spectrum. There's just so many things that I think it's hitting people. It's like an onslaught, right? Like running the gauntlet. It's hitting
yeah,
everybody so hard and so fast that for a lot of us, it's hard to focus on any one thing. And, like for me, for example, I did all this immigration work for years. I've always done some reporting on Cuba and Latin America, and I've always kept an eye on things. And the type of reporting that I did on immigration always focused a lot on root causes, right? I always try to, because race is involved in everything. So there's like this racial dynamic. There's this dynamic where race and politics, there's an intersection there, right? Race and Latin America, there's an intersection there that needs to be addressed. And you can't address immigration without addressing the root causes. And since most
yeah.
people who migrate to the U.S. come from Latin America,
Mm.
it's real easy to see what the root causes are in Latin America, right? U.S. interventionism,
Yes.
sanctions, and oppressive policies, and military presence and threats and all these things. And it's sometimes it is. It's hard to wrap your head around it all. But the more you look at it, the more you realize it's all interconnected. So if you're fighting against
Yeah,
police brutality against black people, for example, or if you're fighting for racial justice for black people, that's an anti-imperialist stance on the domestic front.
yeah,
If you're speaking up for black people's rights in the US, you're speaking up for black people's rights everywhere. Because if we're supposed to be the shining example of democracy to the world, we're not being a good example right now. And the level of incompetence at the White House, between both Trump administrations has exposed a lot. and
Yeah.
people are getting to see how the United States works behind the scenes as far as like the sanctions, manipulation in the media. People are starting to see how legacy media and corporate media basically just parrot the federal government without scrutiny.
Yeah.
They don't tell you about the CIA and Mossad being behind a lot of the protests in Iran before the war started. They didn't tell you about the CIA smuggling weapons into Iran. They don't
Yeah.
tell you about the CIA smuggling weapons into Venezuela, into Cuba, into Haiti, and a private military contractor. This guy Matthew Van Dyke, I have tied into it with this dude on social media before over Venezuela because he's one of these Eric Prince types, right? And he just got arrested trying to smuggle weapons and drones from India into Myanmar. And he himself, the founder of Sons of Liberty, was caught with a bunch of Ukrainians, of all people, smuggling weapons to arm ethnic groups that were anti-government. And I'm like, I mean, like, what more does the world need to see how much of a destabilizing power we are? When you see that, you see Eric Prince in Haiti doing, Iran-style drone strikes on buildings, and they're trying to target one guy and they'll kill 30 people in the process. They don't care. Well, we got the terrorists. Forget that we just killed some children.
Yeah.
And that's happening in Haiti. That's right there. And someone mentioned the other day how if you want to see what the United States is about to do to the rest of the world, pay attention to Haiti. And they're not wrong. They are not wrong. Pay attention to Haiti and you will see why the US does what it does to Cuba, why it did what it did to Venezuela, why it's going after Iran. You see it. And any country that has beat back imperialism, like Cuba, for example, who had its first president that wasn't
Uh,
installed by the US with Fidel Castro, they get smacked around.
yeah.
Your biggest crime
Yep.
is your independence. And that's the sad part. And
Yeah.
you see that at home too. Black people's biggest crime is independence. Latinos, independence. Anybody who is independent or tries to be independent of this oppressive system, you're the enemy to the system. And that's kind of the society we live in. And
Yep.
that's
And we
what
don't
we
have that humanitarian movement. We've got the blue MAGA Democrats, and then we got the pro-fascism Republicans. But it does feel, and that was one of the things that came up yesterday when I was talking to that woman her name was, Kira Havens. Her organization is called the Citizens Impeachment, and she has her 100 candidates running in these primaries. And I told her as I was talking there, it's like, we need to have this digital think tank, all these people, and we just need to be, you know, pro-human. There's no pro-human, we don't have any money, but we do have the numbers. We don't have the guns or the money, but we got the numbers. But I think a lot of it is just the awakening to this reality. I mean, I'm 51 and but a lot of it too is like, okay, you're born, you're 10, you're trying to figure out the world. You get into your 20s, you're just trying to like make enough. It's like your back's constantly against the wall by design. We've got economic terrorism. You're always blamed. Oh, the reason you're struggling is because you're not good enough. That's like the message of this. All that's a lie. And we just kind of get to this point where people with a little bit of a voice and a little bit of a platform, and the only power I have is because of, well, I'm as a 50-year-old white man, whatever, you get a fair amount of power that way. But now people like when those cops pulled me over the other day, they were kind of scared of me. I noticed I was trying to hold back my dog, but I'm like, well, I'm going to leverage this. They treated me differently than they would have treated you, I'm sure. But that's a power we have to use. And then we just have to be unapologetically pro-human. And it's just like, you look at every level, like our entire media is designed to erase those messages. All the bots that come onto my comments are designed to make me look foolish and unserious. And it does feel like momentum is gathering, but we do also have to people that are, 80% allies, we have to move them to become 100% allies
Yeah.
and get people to just be unapologetic, demanding healthcare. Yeah, what you said before. Like Republicans, we pay for Republican healthcare too. All the Republican politicians, they never surrender their healthcare. And we never bring that up because the Democrats don't bother to win elections.
Yeah, yeah, it just sometimes it blows me away just how out of touch people in Congress can be. I mean, even the progressive candidates that I consider some of my favorites, sometimes they can be a little tone deaf.
Yeah.
I do appreciate like Ilhan Omar and Delia Ramirez and a few others that are, speaking up about Cuba, about Iran, about all these things. But, they're sidelined, right? Everybody talks about how Cuba isn't democratic, right? Because it's a one party
Yeah.
country, whatever, one party system. I argue that it's a no party system. It's a communist country, yes, but the Communist Party has no impact on elections, right? They're not the law in Cuba forbids the Communist Party from being involved in elections because it's a governing body. So you look at the United States and yeah, on paper we have two parties, but try to introduce a third party and see how both Democrats and Republicans
Yeah.
react. They will try to sink you in a minute.
Yeah.
Mamdani wasn't on a third party ticket. He ran as a Democrat, and corporate Democrats tried to kill his campaign. And
Yep.
when he beat them, they backed uh, Cuomo running independently to try
Yep.
to undermine him. And it's
Yep.
like, how are we not a one party state? You know what I mean? When people refer to our country, our two parties as a uniparty, there's a reason for that. And
Mhm.
the biggest one is they both take money from the same corporations, from the same billionaires, from the same people. Like, for example, George Soros, right? The right wing's favorite target. If you look at who he funds, he gives both parties the same amount of money because he needs favor from whoever wins. In every election in Texas, George Soros maxes out the $1,200 max that you can donate to a campaign for Republicans and Democrats. He funds both sides. Most billionaires do. You look at Miriam Adelson, right? The gambling tycoon who wants to bring gambling to Texas. She gives Talarico money just as much as she gave Republicans money, and she's a far right fascist,
Yeah.
because her concern is gambling. She wants that done. She doesn't care. She wants to make her money. And this idea that both sides take money from from the same people just kind of puts us in a situation where all of our lawmakers are in debt to these people. It isn't officially you fund my campaign, I'll do you favors, but let's not pretend they don't call in favors after they, fund and put $100 million in the super PAC like Elon Musk did to get Trump elected. Look at the favor he got. Trump gave him
Yeah.
access to all our government systems, and now he has all of our personal information.
Yeah.
And that's what he paid for. He spent close to $300 million for that access. And, when you consider there's 300 million people in the US, he paid $1 per person for all of our information.
Yeah.
That's a pretty freaking good deal.
Yeah. These primaries are making people nervous. You saw my interview with Emily Berge, and she was just
Yeah.
very forthright about that, where she said, "Yeah, they told me in Washington not to do this." And that's that level of control again, where the main distraction, and what's becoming more and more clear to me, the main distraction, and Lisa Hamline said this. She's like, "Forget about Senate, forget about the president. It's the school board stuff, it's the base level stuff, all the down ballot stuff." And it's true. I mean, and this is when I talked to Francesca Hong. She's a state representative. She can't make enough money as a state representative to pay for
Right.
her bills. So she's working as
Same
a
here.
bartender.
I'm in Texas, yeah.
And it's by design. They make all these really important positions not pay anything so that these right wing groups can install these white supremacists, and all these white supremacists are running for school board all the time. And
Yeah.
these are inept people who just like a person with a PhD doesn't want to run for school board because they got important like cancer research and shit to do. So they feel good about themselves. But some completely entitled, worthless white supremacist, well, this is the only way I can feel important. And then we vote him in and they get to be the person who decides who the superintendent of the school is going to be. And it's just sort of like, this has been going on for decades. And it's just sort
Yeah.
of like, and you've said it before too, where we've been told just ignore the white supremacy, which is one of the tactics of white supremacy, to pressure us to just ignore them rather than to fight back against them. And they've taken over all these down ballot offices. They control huge amounts of money, and there's never any accountability for corruption, where they take that money and funnel it off to their other white supremacy buddies. And then people are like, they laugh at me for saying, "Oh, I expect the government to work for us." Oh, you're naive. It's like, no, we have the rules in place. Let's just start arresting these people for all the
Right.
crimes they're breaking.
The government's purpose is to work for us. You know what I mean? It's in a constitution. It's in every government's constitution. It's the whole concept behind the government, right? You try to, keep people in check. You're supposed to keep corporations in check. And,
Yeah.
we live in a world where, so one example kills me. The other day, a petrochemical plant explodes here in Houston. Everybody's freaking out. False flag. Oh, they're trying to claim it's Iran, whatever. And I'm like, y'all are dumb. We have these like every month. A refinery, a chemical plant, a something explodes around here every month. People don't realize that. I start pointing that out, and they're like, and I had a lot of people asking me questions. How do these corporations get away with that? And it's because it's cheaper to pay the fine than it is to do it right. And like, I think it was Exxon a few years ago got busted for not having the flares on their stacks, which is supposed to burn off any kind of hazardous chemicals that come out. They didn't have one up there for months because it cost them like, I don't know, 150 grand to get somebody to climb up there, put a flare up there to light it. The fine is only like 50 grand for that whole duration of 3 months of not having the thing. So, you know, what what is their motivation to do things
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have whole parts of our city, like the Fifth Ward, which is a majority black area in Houston, and it's part of Cancer Alley. It's toxic as hell. The grounds are poisoned, and the city just neglects that part of town. And I worked there for 2 years. I know a lot of people in the Fifth Ward. A lot of people are scared of the Fifth Ward. I love it there. Nothing but good things ever happened to me in the Fifth Ward, and
Yeah.
it's just a shame that our even our local government, and we're supposed to be a progressive city, treats the Fifth Ward like that. So, we have these systems where it's cheaper to just ignore the right thing, and you know, you can poison our environment, you can kill people, you can give them cancer,
Yeah.
and it's still cheaper to pay the fine than it is to do it right. So,
Yeah.
you, you know, everything in society and US society is like that. It's this
Yes.
and it's not a knock on capitalism in general, it's a knock on unfettered capitalism, right? Unregulated capitalism. Our government is supposed to prevent these things and not allow them to happen. Like, we have antitrust laws that are supposed to prevent Ellison from buying all these media companies
Yeah.
and TikTok and owning all these things and having a somewhat of a monopoly. And it's really a duopoly, right? Because it's not just one monopoly, there's multiple, and they work in conjunction with each other. And just like all these corporations, they negotiate what price, how much you should pay for a burger. It's not a coincidence that all of a sudden your value meals at McDonald's and Wendy's and everywhere else went from $5 to $10.
Yeah.
Happened at
Yeah.
the same time for a reason, and that is market manipulation. All of that's illegal.
Yeah.
You go to an auto parts store and you can get an alternator at Hilo or O'Reilly for $40. You go to AutoZone, it's $45, right? But then if you need the battery that goes with that, it's $5 cheaper over here and there. So like you're basically paying the same. And it's always it's we lived in a rigged economy. Somebody I
Yeah.
saw a video this morning of a guy who went to Panera Bread, got two soups and sandwiches, $71. Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean, dude.
oh, and yes, or I was talking with, Nick Paro the other day, and I got his account banned on TikTok because of he got a clip flagged of me talking, and it was because I said election integrity.
Yeah.
The word election integrity got poor old Nick's account banned. I stand by that ban, but I'm just like, "Okay, wait a minute. What does that mean? Are there not then TikTok Republicans on TikTok talking about the SAVE Act because that's election rigging. They called it like talking about, but the control of the media where you're not allowed to
Yeah.
even have a discussion about. And so just consider if they draw the line at somebody saying election integrity, he's like, that's what they saw in the clip that they flagged. Election integrity. It's like if somebody you establish yourself as a creator, that's how you're making your money. And you're afraid of saying even the words like, what do you limit? Your self censor so many things because you can't even say the word election integrity without risking losing your livelihood then. And so, yeah, like we don't have the local newspapers anymore. We don't have a pipeline to develop investigative journalists, like we used to have. You're
Yeah.
doing it here online and things like that. But in the old days, you'd start out in a local paper that goes out to 2,000 people. And then if you got something wrong, the consequences would be contained within 2,000 people. but they bought all that up, and now it's just AI content. Nobody even talks about, oh, there's this thing going on in our town anymore because they're just regurgitating the same old brainwashing propaganda that the entire corporate media controls. So yeah, the control of how we talk has gotten to be very concerning to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to like local media, the little bit of local media that's left is, they're more zoomed out on
Yeah,
stories than they've ever been. There's when it comes to journalism, right? This is the basics for any story. You got the who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? Our media, legacy media, likes to leave out the whys and the hows a lot.
yeah,
You saw a lot of it, like Iran. You never get the how. Like how did we get here? They don't go back all the way to 1953 where we overthrew the government, blah blah blah, and installed the Shah.
yeah,
Same thing with Cuba. Cuba is on the verge of collapse. Why? Why is it on the verge of collapse? Tell me why. I dare you to tell me
yeah,
why. But they won't. They won't because that makes the United States the villain. If they tell you that there's an illegal naval blockade on an island, which is an act of war, then all of a sudden public opinion turns against the United States and against all the Cuban Americans. And regardless of them leaving that part out of the story, thanks to the internet,
yeah,
people are waking up to that. And look, I've been focused a lot on Cuba for obvious reasons, right? I'm worried about family, friends, things like that. And I know I shifted away from a few things like Latin America and immigration and things, but I feel like I have to do what I'm doing to try to save some people's lives, right? Particularly like my friends and family
yeah,
who are on the island. And the more I write about it, the more attention I'm getting, the more people are seeing my work. When I
yeah,
question my latest article, is Cuba democratic, right? I did an analysis and I've been doing this for years. And I always questioned democracy in Cuba, right? My whole life, you heard all these stories. And when I did an article for Latino Rebels in 2022, the goal of the article was to analyze both electoral systems, and my goal was to try to prove, look, we have democracy, they don't. It turned out the other way around.
wow, yeah,
They have
yeah,
democracy, we
that's
don't.
fascinating. Yeah,
Right. And when
scientific
you
met
look at how their elections run, no money, no campaigning,
yeah,
none of that's allowed. All you're allowed to do is post your resume with a photo in your neighborhood. That's who votes for you. And, it works that way up the chain. And that seems pretty well democratic, in 2019.
yeah,
So, like,
huh,
for a while, in 2015 or so, Cubans on the island were wanting economic reforms. They wanted more private businesses. They wanted more things. 2019, they the National Assembly, which is their Congress, put together a proposal to bring in to allow Cubans to have more private businesses. They sent that proposal to the people, a referendum. 77% of the people voted. The constitutional amendment passed. Now private businesses are 51% of retail sales in the economy, not the government, right? So success. In 2022, the National Assembly put together a package for the people to vote on, and that was focused on equality, right? LGBTQ rights, protecting children from predators who come
yeah,
to the U.S. to try to. I don't even want to get into that,
yeah,
and to protect the elderly. And the National Assembly sent that down to the people. 75% of the people voted, and it passed.
yeah,
Cuba now has more rights for marginalized communities than we have in the US. Gay marriage is codified into the Constitution, trans rights in the
uh-huh,
Constitution,
yeah,
gay adoption in the Constitution. All of
right,
those things are
right,
in their Constitution. We don't have those rights here. Black people have been in Cuba's Constitution since day one. They
right,
have protections in their Constitution. We don't have that here.
yeah,
And it's, I don't know, the way other countries govern, Venezuela has
yep,
rights for Black and indigenous people in their constitution. People want to argue that Venezuela and Cuba are, um, you know, oppressive, that they don't give a shit
well,
about
yeah,
human rights. But in Venezuela and Cuba, housing, healthcare, education, and food are all human rights. We
yeah,
don't have those here.
yep,
So You can say what you want about Cuba. I'm not a communist. You can say what you want about Fidel Castro. I don't give a shit
Yeah.
about your opinions about him. But at the end of the day, you just have to look at what's what.
Yeah.
And any human can see. You don't have to be a communist to know that there are a lot of things in Cuba and
Yeah.
Venezuela that are better than they are here.
Well,
And
that's
it's
I mean, what you're saying is just fascinating because it just shows the efforts that's put into this propaganda to pull the wool over our eyes and make us vote against our interests in the United States with all these lies that we're and it's just to protect this system of pedophile billionaires, really. Like even the word communist. What does that even okay, you that's just a word. And why should I instantly recoil at the sound of that word? I mean, they just put in all this effort so that it's like, well, gee, I would like it if my kids had health care. Well, you're a communist. It's like, what? My kid is sick. I shouldn't have to go bankrupt. And just the way, and it's what part of it is, I think it was the opinionated ogre wrote the other day, the entire Republican Party is based on this, well, and they give you that resting white supremacy face like Scott Jennings. Well, government can't work.
right.
And that's but then you so what that means is they can't allow any example of a government working anywhere in the world to persist because they know that there's a certain level of curiosity where people are like, wait, I just see an example of it. Crush. And I was talking to a guy, his name's Chris Phelps. He got elected to the state as state representative, and he's on like the education board for the state of Wisconsin. And he's just like, you're sitting there, and the Republicans just come in and deliberately sabotage everything. It's like they any system that appears to be working, they target and then they undermine it so that it stops working. And then they can say, look, that's not working. We need to privatize this so that they can become wealthy again. And that's entirely what's going on just on every level of our society. I think though, because it's like so many people we've been indoctrinated. My whole life, this has just been this heavy full court press of indoctrination at every level of our psyche, like just demanding that we can't even ask for, well, the government is the greatest threat to your freedom, and the government is this, and that, just all those different lines. But now we're at this point, and I think it's the Epstein realization where you just can't hide. It's like propaganda can't make us overcome our revulsion to seeing fucking nasty old 70-year-old men rape little kids and murder them and eat them and all this shit that's in the Epstein files. And I think that's the moment it's like, fuck, that's not going to happen. We're not allowing it. And it's just making us, hopefully, we got to use that momentum and bring down this whole mechanism that tells us that we can't have a government that works for us.
Yeah, I've been telling a lot of people, and it's been a lot of Cuban Americans too. And anytime MAGA replies or comments or anything in my stuff, I'm like, my response to them is simple. You support a pedophile, nothing you say has any validity. End of story. You're a
Yep.
disgusting human being. That's
Yeah.
it. I
Yep.
don't respond to them. I mute them. I block them, whatever. But I don't do it until I tell them, look, you support a pedophile. Nothing you say has merit. Nothing you say has merit. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to talk to you. And that's plain. You leave it at that, and alienate these people.
Yes.
Push them out.
Yep.
Push them out. And
Yes.
that's what we should have been doing to Nazis this whole time. We should have been doing this to racists this whole time.
Yes.
Look, you're a fucking racist. I'm not talking to you. Shut up. Nothing you say has any validity. Nothing.
Yep.
Because everything you say is now based on you being racist, is now based on you
Yes.
protecting a pedophile. I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. Any Cuban American with a MAGA hat, I'm like, I always tell them, look, dude, take Trump to Cuba, they will put his ass in a wood chipper. Okay. There's no way in hell they're supporting a pedophile. You support a pedophile, nothing you say has merit.
Yes.
Period. End of story. But to give people a little bit of hope, I want to point this out. Okay. So there's this thing that happened here in Houston a couple months ago. So you mentioned something about all these right wingers and then, taking over our school boards and stuff like that. That happened in the Cypress Fairbanks School District, right close to my house. And, a bunch of MAGA people took over the school district. They had the majority. They were banning books. They were shutting down all these different, classes and all types of stuff.
Yeah.
And we are in a very red part of the county. 2 months ago, all those MAGA people were ousted and they were replaced not by centrist Democrats,
Mm.
by progressives.
Yeah.
Progressives
Yeah.
is what it took to take them out. So, you look at a James Tallarico, right? I don't really like the guy. I don't trust the guy. He feels like dog whistle Republican to me. and that's fine. Everybody can have their opinions about him because at this point, we don't have a
Yeah,
choice. It's gonna be either him or Ken Paxton or John Cornyn, right?
yeah,
We don't want Ken Paxton or John Cornyn, so we're stuck with Tallarico. That's who most people are gonna vote for that I know of, on the Democrat side. But when you keep suggesting that a progressive could never win in Texas, when we have progressives all over the place in this
yeah,
state, more than centrist Democrats, you are really missing the point. And this idea that you need a white man to win is seriously racist as
yeah.
hell, and I don't understand why people don't see that. But when you taking your advice from the Tim Millers at Bulwark and
Carville's.
all these never Trump dog whistle Republicans, that's what happens. That's what comes out of their mouths. Yeah, James Carville, he's the guy, and Tim Miller were pushing this whole gotta have a white man to win, and they
Yeah,
ignored that the last white man to run for the Senate lost his ass to a Latino. So
yeah,
that's such a misnomer and such an ignorant thing to say, because you don't have to
yeah,
be tell Al Green and Sheila Jackson Lee and Sylvester Turner and all these other great black progressive leaders that come out of Texas. Tell them you gotta be a white man to win here and see how they react to that,
yeah,
because it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Texas is an economic populous state, always has been because we are an oil rich state.
yeah,
If you're not feeding that, you are losing. That's how Republicans win. That's how progressives win. You tell people you're going to take care of them, and
yeah,
that's how you win. It's
yes,
simple. Basic human rights is like the lowest freaking bar for anybody. And I don't
yeah,
understand why people Gavin Newsom, man, drives me
fuck,
nuts. He's a great troll. Great, great. That doesn't make him a good candidate. I mean, making military service compulsory? Fuck out of here. Not my
yeah,
kids. Not my kids, bro.
yep,
No.
and he platforms people like Bannon, but he would never come close to talking
And
to you or
and
me.
Charlie Kirk. Yeah, he
Yeah.
platformed Charlie Kirk. I mean, Ben Shapiro.
Well,
Like,
they know, see, and it's just like the blue mega, they know where the threat is, and a lot of Americans have been conditioned where they don't know where the real fight is. It's not the general election. That's not where the fight is. It's these primaries. You're gonna have to give me a list of all these consultants, all these different. I know of Carville, and he's been my target, but I know that there's all these blue mega consultants because I've been talking with Lisa Hamline, who is one of the state Democrats in Texas. She's doing really, really good work, and I'm arranging something with Natasha Kay, and we're gonna be like, how do you win the black vote in Texas? And part of it is they have to denounce the bigots, the blue mega bigots like James Carville, because if you say I want to earn the black vote, and then you listen to James Carville, you've just flipped off the black vote, and they
you
can't.
did.
And they always try to like this foundational thing, this thing that's wrong. They want us to skip over this thing they do. Well, now we got to build this tower. It's like, no, this thing you did is your foundation stone of your tower. If you try to build a tower on that, it's going to fall down. Oh, Walter, you're being divisive. It's time for us to come together. This is all the bullshit. And it's like, oh, you want to come together? Come together with me.
Yeah.
You model what you want me to do by you listening to me for a change. Stop lecturing. And yeah, and we'll get those names. I'll get you on a call with that Lisa at some point. She was great when I talked to her. She was absolutely fantastic, and she knows who you are.
Yeah, I think like, the Tim Miller people and like the Bulwark, they're trying to make their way into the whole consultant class. That scares me because
Cushy
they're
job.
trying to be
Yeah.
Democrat consultants and they're Republicans. And, Donald Trump killed conservatism, right? He took it to the far right. There's not really any legitimate conservative lawmakers left. There's a few, maybe Thune, right? Or
Well,
a
probably
couple
all the
guys.
Democrats. They're all
Right.
they're all
Democrats
raving
are filling
Republicans. Yeah.
Democrats are filling the vacuum. This whole
Yeah.
meet Nazis in the middle bullshit, you know
Oh,
what I mean? That's
yeah.
that's Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's trying to meet Nazis in the middle, and, he bashes trans people, and he bashes
Yeah.
identity politics, which is basically Democrats' dog whistle for DEI and wokeism, right?
Yeah.
That's what identity politics is on the liberal side. It's saying woke, it's saying DEI, just say it. You wanna
Yeah.
talk like
Say
Republicans,
diversity. Say the
just talk
words.
Right, just
Yeah.
talk like Republicans. Say
So you
say the
hate
thing.
diversity, huh? You give your
Right.
kid a one-pack crayon that's only got the color white? Yeah.
Right, and then meanwhile, Republicans, the far right, the MAGA Republicans, they're all running on identity politics. It's all white, 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 white.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to be quiet while
Yeah.
Klansmen are burning crosses. I mean, that's kind of the situation we're in. There, it's a proverbial cross, right? These are clean cut Klansmen. They no longer wear robes; they wear suit and ties,
They wear red
and
hats. Yeah.
big giant, Christian nationalist tattoos on their chest. And we're not supposed to talk about identity politics as they're taking black people's rights away, as they're taking Latinos' rights away, as they're
Yeah.
taking our voting power
As they're
away.
raping little kids in concentration
Right.
camps, and we're
They're
not supposed to talk about that? Yeah.
right, exactly. The way the media reported on underage girls all of a sudden being testing positive for pregnancy
Yeah.
in detention. No, they're
Like
being
it's
raped,
their fault.
dumbass.
Yeah.
Right. Say the fucking thing,
It's
dude. Like,
immaculate
do
conception
this.
is what you're trying to say? Fuck. Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
Like, dude, just say the thing. And like the other day, the Associated Press called what Israel is doing in Lebanon an invasion. They posted a whole ass article about why they're using that word and what that means. Bro, we fucking know. Just say the goddamn thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
fucking invasion.
Yeah.
We're bombing. I mean, come on, man. You can't just say, I'm tired of hearing 175 schoolgirls killed. No, they weren't killed. They were fucking bombed by the United States.
Yeah.
Say the goddamn thing.
Yeah.
That's
Twice.
not
Double tapped.
right. That's not journalism.
Yeah.
And that's where I push back on all these
Yes.
people. And that's why everybody's like, you need to stop watching mainstream media. And I'm like, the only reason I do is so I could push back. Because
Yeah.
if we ignore them like we did the Nazis, they get away with it.
Yeah.
And
But
they
like
grow and they grow and they grow.
like this idea that we're not allowed to ask a follow-up question, like right after the Pennsylvania assassination, like we're not allowed
Yeah.
to see the wound. It's like that's a completely reasonable thing for me to ask. And just so much of our society, though, and that is eroding, but people will come out of the woodwork. And yeah, I just wrote down because I get accused of being extreme. That's your tagline, extreme Arturo. But it's like it's not. This is. I'm a scientist. I'm certified to teach English and physics. I learned the scientific method. You ask questions, and if something doesn't add up, it's because your theory's wrong. And they just want to
Right.
shove their lie of the capitalist oligarchy lie down our throats all the time. But people and yeah, but at the rage thing, you can break through it. I mean, people are just more inclined to just kind of huddle, put their head in the sand and try to survive the day. But it's getting pretty darn clear that, the grocery store in my community just closed, and
Damn.
it's like there's no hospitals anymore. You're going to fucking die unless you start pulling your head out of the sand and recognizing what's going on.
Yeah, our closest hospital is one of those little it's an emergency room, but it's one of those small ones, like in a shopping center type situation. And then, beyond that, you gotta go like 6, 7 miles to the nearest hospital, and it's not even and it's a private hospital. So, you'd be lucky to even get in there. But yeah, access to things are going away. Life is becoming harder, everything's becoming more expensive, and it's all intentional, right?
Yeah.
They used inflation to, jack up prices much more than they needed to.
Yeah.
It was a manufactured inflation
Yeah.
crisis.
Eggs had
Prices
record profits. Like the egg companies
right.
had record profit. I'm like, report this. This is all a
Yeah.
lie.
It's
There's
the
no
thing.
shortage.
It's the
Yeah.
thing. Like we give oil companies subsidies and they record record profits every year.
Yeah.
Clearly they don't need subsidies, right?
The
Or
whole
should we
military. The whole
Yeah.
military is a subsidy of the oil industry. We protect
Right.
the oil fields abroad.
Yeah.
Why do they get to be rich,
Yeah, we've been protecting um Guyana while they're drilling in disputed waters off the coast of Venezuela. Venezuela can't do shit because there's military ships there protecting ExxonMobil.
Yeah.
ExxonMobil, of all people, that's
Don't raise taxes on those guys.
yeah. ExxonMobil is literally a cartel. They have their own private military. They use people like that Matthew Van Dyke and Eric Prince
Yeah.
and all that stuff to
Well,
kill
what
people.
too, the whole story, like when oil was discovered, it was right after the fall of the Confederacy, and the
Mhm.
KKK is like, "Oh, well, this is God. This is how we restore the Confederacy."
Right.
Like the whole oil industry is white supremacy, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and somebody just asked how many tech companies got their start from US intelligence groups.
Oh boy.
I'll tell you, most of them got their start with free and open source code from DARPA.
Hmm.
military program. Google was founded with DARPA, Facebook, DARPA. Almost every social media company and every tech platform out there was originally started with open source, publicly available, work from DARPA, which is a military program. Elon Musk, he used
Yeah,
the reason why Elon Musk keep says, "Oh, I open sourced this technology for this and technology for that." It was open source before you got it. That's how you
yeah,
built your space program with technology that we paid for with our tax
yeah,
dollars.
and
That
subsidies, yeah, free money
Right,
to
and
him.
we paid we built NASA, right? Everything NASA built was paid for with our tax dollars. Because it was paid for with our tax dollars, it is publicly available data. You can build stuff with NASA tech. You can go to the NASA website, access code, build things with NASA stuff. That's what Elon Musk did. And we're giving him tens of billions of dollars a year for his
Yep,
space program, and we're taking that away from NASA and we're privatizing and letting somebody profit off of something we built with our tax dollars.
yeah,
That's where we are. And we built the power grid, we built the
yep,
highway, we built the water system, we built everything. The internet infrastructure was built with our tax dollars,
yep,
and now they're charging us just to use it.
yep,
You
and
you go to you go to Venezuela, you ride the subway, and it's like 50 cents to
yep,
go wherever the subway goes. Why? Because you're paying to keep it operational, you're paying to pay people's salaries, you're not paying for somebody to profit. There's no
yeah,
guy putting money in his pocket in the
mm,
middle, and that's how those systems work. You can call me a communist if you want, or a socialist, whatever, but I'm of the belief that if we build something,
yes,
we should have access to it, not hand it over for free like the telephone system, right? We built that. Ma Bell. Remember Ma Bell? Southwest Bell, Northwest Bell, East Coast Bell, Southern Bell, the Bell system. We built that. And then I remember as a kid where we broke it up and gave it to AT&T and MCI and
yeah,
Sprint and all these other companies, and we just gave it to them.
yeah,
And now
yeah,
now we have to pay to use it.
yep.
What the fuck?
Billionaire welfare. That's what I keep saying. That's my
Right,
phrase. Let's end the it's like, stop with don't even talk about taxing them. Just stop giving them all our shit. How about
right.
that? And
Yeah,
then
it's a transfer of wealth, right? We pay
yeah.
to build it, we give it to somebody else, then now they're taking all our money.
Well, like, look at the COVID vaccine, all this money dumped into that, and then now we're paying for the fucking COVID vaccine, and like, people will say, "Well, if we don't put money into it, there'll be no incentive for people." I'm like, guy that came up with the polio vaccine, the guy who came up with insulin, they're just like, "This is for humanity, worth billions of dollars." They just gave it away, and then we got the thing where they changed one little thing, they put a copyright on it then, and now they charge so people die because they can't afford to buy it anymore. But yeah, like, I think what's becoming clear and what this talk has bring me to, just the corruption necessary to create wealth. And it's just like, if you start ripping that veil away, because everybody knows, and it's pretty easy because everybody's got their back up against the wall. That's economic terrorism we're facing. Everybody, you work hard. I know you work hard. Why are you not a millionaire then? Is it because and it's, you can fool kids that are 20, but you get to people that are like nearing retirement age and you're like, what? Listen to all this bullshit you're saying. You're telling me that, if you'd worked hard all your life, you'd have $10 million. You don't have it. So I guess you're worthless. And they're like, hell, wait, what? It's like, sometimes you can get through to people by saying things like that, but just because it's getting so clear, the theft is so obvious at this point.
Yeah, and COVID's a good example of that too. We have a doctor here, who's does all that stuff, disease stuff. Dr. Hotez, right? Dude's a legend around here. He created a vaccine,
Wow.
and he's giving it away for free. The tech, everything, gave it away for free. All the big pharma companies were like, "Oh, up in arms about it," right? Because we have ours, we have ours.
Yeah.
And he starts distributing it, and then they thought they were going to make quadrillions of dollars selling their vaccine to the world. Moderna and Pfizer and all them. Then here comes Cuba with their own little
Yeah.
vaccine,
You mentioned that. Yep.
right? And not only did they create their vaccine, they also went to other countries and helped them build production facilities so they can manufacture their own
Yeah.
vaccine. They gave it to China. China mass produced the vaccine, started sending it all over the world. Guess how much Cuba charged for that? Zero.
Yeah.
Free. It's
Yeah.
still free today. The
Yeah.
Abdallah vaccine is still free today to anybody in the world. And if you need to start manufacturing vaccines, Cuba will send doctors and engineers and all that stuff and help you build the production facilities to get you started.
That's a
Dude,
Nobel Peace Prize. They should be
you
getting
want
a
to know
Nobel.
why? You want to know why the United States hates Cuba? That's it. Because
Yeah.
think about this. Just looking at Cuba's pharmaceutical industry, had they become have if we were to give Cuba access to free markets, our pharmaceutical industry would be cut off at the knees and would have
Yeah,
to rethink how they do business because
yeah,
they can't compete with free,
yeah, yep,
a lot of countries were like, "Look, you're gonna do that to it for us for free? Here, we'll help you out with this." And there's this
yeah,
barter system that works, and it doesn't not all things can be like that, obviously, but
that
some
yeah,
things can, especially things that save lives, food aid, vaccines, like all these things instead of having
yeah,
I don't know, I don't know, man. There's so much different
yeah,
stuff that yeah, I think if you gave countries like Cuba and Venezuela access to free markets and they provide housing, healthcare, education, and food as a human right, it would undermine everything that this country was built on
yeah.
because it would kill the exploitation factor. And capitalism can't survive without exploitation. It was built on slavery.
Yes, control is that mindset, and it brings to mind something I've been thinking about because I'm so rural, I grew up in a house my parents built, it was a log they just cut down the trees and built a log that's how I lived growing up, and they had a Franklin stone, and they had a slab of concrete, and they put up a house. And now imagine just think about that because I know, like, somebody was telling me they're homeless, and it's costing them even, like, thousands of dollars just to pay for, like, where they park their car and shit like that. So, like, imagine like today, if you were like, okay, I got this little plot of land, I'll just build a house. Today, like a government agent would show up and say, well, this is not up to code. They'd burn down the house. They'd hit you with a fine right as winter came. So you'd be stuck with a fine and homeless. If they'd have just left you alone to live in your little house that you built and just like at every aspect of our society. My daughter was saying to this because everything about how I look at things is cheat the system. She says, it feels like I'm cheating the system. It's like, you have to. The system is corrupt. It's like, if you are like, if you just settle into that rut that you're pushed into, you're fucked. It's like, there's no student debt, none of these things. You have to stay up. And even though it feels like it's this huge effort to stay on top of it, you don't realize how much effort it is to get back out of that rut once you fall back in and you want to get out of there. You don't know how shitty it is down there. But just,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's so hard to like avoid because we want to avoid giving our money to millionaires. They don't really give us much of a choice. Like, it's like, okay, I'm not going to go to this store because it's owned by corrupt assholes, but I have to drive to this other one. So I'm effectively giving my money to the asshole millionaires in the oil industry instead. And so we have to have some grace with people, but we do have to try. And the more we can just, yeah, if it comes down to just building your own house on a plot of land and growing your own food, getting off the grid, don't broadcast it because you'll have those federal agents come because now you're a threat to this capitalist culture that makes wealthy people able to exploit us.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's essentially what it boils down to because I was doing pretty well when I was doing my government contracting, things like that. And then when I had a stroke in 2014, that depleted everything I had ever saved in like 6 months. We lost our house,
Yeah.
we lost our
Yeah.
vehicle. Here I am 12 years later and I'm still struggling. I'm still poor, I'm still, it sucks. And you can't, there's no easy way out. And had we had healthcare, housing, food, and all these things
Yeah.
as human rights, I would not be in this situation.
Yeah.
And even if I don't know, it's just ridiculous to me that again, back to Israel and their free healthcare that we
Yeah.
pay for that we pay for that shit, but we can't have it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, they're committing genocide, starting wars in 6 countries, and again, we are paying for it, and we can't have healthcare. They say I've seen study after study after study, and somewhere between $20 to $30 billion a year would end homelessness. That's a drop in the bucket
Wow.
compared to the amount
Yeah.
of money we have sent
A
Israel
month's
in the
worth.
last
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Month's
nothing.
worth of war. Yeah.
Right. And once you end homelessness, you don't have that bill to pay anymore, right? So it's a temporary
Yep.
thing. You build these systems, you keep them operational, you get everybody off the street, you know, as
You don't
bad
need the
as Cuba
police.
is, there are no
Police go
homeless
away.
people.
Yeah.
Right? There are no homeless people in Cuba, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's oh man, it blows me away that we accept this as a democratic society and, our activists, protesters, all kinds of people getting arrested, disappeared, thrown in jails and deported to terrorist prisons in other countries or terrorist prisons in
Yeah.
Cuba that we
Kids
run.
getting raped in these
Right, like,
concentration camps.
dude, this is not a democracy, this is a plutocracy, it's a democracy for the rich, and if they pass the SAVE Act, that's just gonna put that last nail in the coffin to make sure that it is a democracy for the rich, because poor people ain't gonna be able to afford, all these IDs and passports and these things, and then women are gonna be isolated because
Yeah.
if they have a married name, they have to prove their shit, like,
Yeah.
it's the same thing when my wife had to go get her real ID license, different
Yeah.
last name because she has a married name, she had to bring birth certificate, she had to bring marriage license, she had to bring all these damn things to prove that, she is who she is, and it's like, dude, she's a white lady, like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. She was clearly born here. She's East Texas accent. It doesn't get any more American than that, I would
Yeah.
say, but it
And then
doesn't matter,
and then they shoot you in the face too,
yeah, and it's
Mhm.
all racism, right? They just wanna make sure that brown people don't get their licenses there and don't have ID and that black people can't vote and women can't vote, and that's all this is. It's white
Yeah.
Christian nationalism. Again, it
Well, which is
always comes
white
back to that.
yeah, white
Always.
supremacy. And when I talked to Annalisa Brunner the other day, and she was just like, "'Cause we get tricked," like, and the trick is, like, in the movie Sinners, I keep coming back to that. If you don't invite the vampires into your house, they have no power, right? And so their whole life is to make you submit to that. "Oh, come on in." And then they jump over that. So then they come in and they kill you. And so the entire United States, what have we taken? What have we've made this trade, right? We've given up all these things that like, free healthcare and just decent human dignity. And Americans will defiantly defend this choice that they made because it's, oh, well, what you have in place of that is this false promise that one day you will be among the billionaire class, right? You've sold your soul for nothing. You've given up the life and the well being of your children. And to this day, and Americans are so subjected to economic terrorism, we attack creation, we attack art in school because we don't want any form of creative expression. Because they know if we just had 2 seconds to think about things, we couldn't listen to their propaganda anymore, right? We don't even want kids to color within the lines. You can't give
Right.
them a blank piece of paper to color whatever they want. Here's a preconceived thing I used to draw all over those things.
Yeah.
And it's just like we have to rattle that free and give people the opportunity to just start seeing where at that moment it feels like it, where people are just like, this ain't working. And it's just like, but we have to have that collective. It's hard to come to that collective realization that absolutely everything they've ever told us about this country is just fucking bullshit. It's all fucking lies, people. It's like, it's not you, it's them. It's not because you didn't work hard enough. It's because they fucked with you and they're fucking with your kids. And
Yeah.
so we're mad as hell. We're not giving
Yeah.
it anymore.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, even when you look back at like the Civil Rights Act and desegregation and even the end of slavery, like, white people didn't end slavery, the slaves did.
Mhm.
It was all the slave revolts,
Yeah.
all Abraham Lincoln did was sign a piece of paper. He didn't really actually fucking do anything. And, even when he signed that paper, he wanted to send all the black people to fucking Liberia. Like he
Yep.
was not a good person.
And reparations for the plantation owners.
Right, he saved the Union because he had to. He said if he could save the Union and protect slavery, he would. That's a pretty shitty thing to say. And then, when it comes to civil rights and things like that and the desegregation, again, I hate to keep going back to Cuba, but goddamn it, Cuba desegregated 5 years before we did.
Yeah.
And, a lot of white Cubans fled because of desegregation and they went to Florida for a reason. It was heavily fucking segregated. People don't realize that.
Mm.
Communism didn't come to Cuba till 1961. So the people that fled between 1959 and 1961 can't say they fled communism. They fled desegregation. And I mean, there's a ton. This is a big part of our oral history, but there's a ton of information about that. And at the end of the day, the United States ended slavery because of pressure from the enslaved and from foreign powers. They desegregated because of pressure from black people and marginalized communities and outside influence. You know, Everything that this country has ever done has been behind everybody else, and they did it because of external pressure and because of pressure from within. So when you can put pressure on the United States from within and from the outside, that's when you can really see some sort of change. But a lot of the times that change is just material, right? It's cosmetic.
Yeah.
right after that, we passed the Voting Rights Act, but then the racists in this country, the people with power,
Yep.
never forgave us for passing the Civil Rights Act, never forgave us for
Yeah.
abolishing slavery, and they paid. They
Oh
they
yeah.
they made the country pay with Jim Crow laws and then with
Yeah.
attacks on civil rights and with, women's rights and all these things, and, you know, it's really hard to see this as a free country, as we've been told that it is, when it isn't. And then, right now we're getting external pressure. I think it was Macron's wife, and then some Israelis have been saying that we need to put restrictions on the First Amendment. Nope.
Well, they
Go
don't let
back
me use
over
the
there.
word integrity on TikTok
Yeah.
anymore. So
Yeah, like, get the fuck out of here. Go
they're
go
perfectly happy. Yeah,
Yeah,
they never ban Mein Kampf when they're doing their book bans. It's always,
yeah,
books about compassionate, loving relationships. One of the things, an idea I've been percolating on is this idea where we've been conditioned to underestimate the ingenuity of the corrupt. And it's just that idea of if you're just a hardworking person trying to feed your family, there's certain things you're gonna do. But like that person who has then axe murdered his family, what he will do to cover that up is like a level of ingenuity that decent people can't imagine as they get into that slippery slope of covering up crime after crime after crime. And we keep forgetting the Confederacy is alive and well. It's currently occupying the Oval Office, and
yeah.
they are Project 2025. They've got their think tanks, they've got their lawyers, they've got all their corrupt judges who go out and join out. I mean, the KKK was 30% of Congress in 1920 or so, right? So it's like these things, and they changed their name, but it's always like the ingenuity of the corrupt, what they are willing to do in order to maintain it's something that reasonable, rational, caring people can't comprehend. We can't. I mean, like just like the level of evil, it's coming out into the light now with the Epstein files, what they are actually capable of, you know. But they are compelled, like that terror. When you have done, and I know like a mind like kind of example is there's been times when I've like if you break your like a lamp at your mom's house, you're like, oh shit, I better clean up this. Like you would never clean the house on your own, you're trying to cover up punishment. You're like, oh shit! You get your buddies and you clean things up fast. And there are men with billions of dollars with that same mindset trying to cover up these just heinous crimes. And just our awareness or understanding, we have to make that a formal study. I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the billionaire pedophile, I mean, the Epstein class basically
Mm,
is obviously a much bigger problem than I ever fucking imagined, that's for sure. But, the what really shocks me is how many people are willing to overlook it or provide cover
yeah,
just because it happens to be someone they like.
yeah,
No, I don't care. I don't give a
yeah,
damn. Dude, wood chipper. Hello, wood chipper.
yeah.
'Cause that's where they go.
The
But
child rapists. Yeah. I mean,
but,
come on.
well, you mentioned the Klan, right, and how they were 30% of Congress and stuff, but one of the things that, like, I bring up often is how, segregationists and stuff during, like, Jim Crow, the people who passed Jim Crow laws were in Congress until, like, 60s or 70s, right? The people who were desegregationists who fought against the Civil Rights Act were in Congress till the '90s and the 2000s. How much change do you
Yeah.
expect to see when lawmaker wise, we're about 2 generations separated from the abolition of slavery and Jim Crow.
Yeah.
None. You look at a Chuck Schumer who
Yeah.
he came into office the year I was born at the heel at the e at the he on the heels of the
Yeah.
segregationists, and he's been in office for 51 years,
Yeah.
52 years. How much change is gonna occur in that time? Nancy Pelosi in all that time. Even Jim Clyburn, he's
Yeah.
what, fucking 90 now. Like,
Yeah.
bro, like, we need people in office who are gonna suffer the consequences of the legislation they pass,
Yeah.
right? I don't
Yeah.
I don't need people who don't have a stake in what they're doing. Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi could die tomorrow. She's not gonna suffer from anything she does today. Neither's Clyburn, neither's Schumer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need people who are going to suffer the consequences with us for their stupidity.
Yes.
And billionaires are the ones that keep these people in there because they
Yeah.
have them bought and sold. They have a long track record of bought and sold. A billionaire can look at Chuck Schumer and be like, "Look, dude, we've given you
Yep.
X amount of
Yep.
dollars over the last
Yep.
50 years. You better
Yep.
come through for me." Right?
Blue mega.
Like,
Yep.
right.
Eh,
So there's a lot of lawmakers like that. It's not just Schumer. It's not just Clyburn. It's not, there are a lot. A lot of them were
Well,
younger,
like
but
Schumer's a guy where he remembers when an 8-track was like new technology, right? Like he's that
oh my
old.
god, yes.
And sort of like we expect him to pass legislation to stop AI bots from
Right,
brainwashing our kids on social media. Like this guy's basically he probably still thinks an 8-track is a pretty neat thing. Like, holy shit,
probably.
I'm surprised. Like these guys that can't attach a document to an email, they can't perceive. And they're just so yeah, I mean, yeah. And it's like and technology changes so fast now. And like this idea that we can't have experts, like constant attacks on education, curiosity in itself, questions, constant attacks on questions, all the authoritarian mandate. You just have the patriarchal mandate. Even though your dad just abused your mom right in front of your eyes, you're not allowed to talk about that. We're moving on to the next thing because we live in this false parameter society that is just disconnected from reality when we're not even allowed to use our own senses. We're supposed to disregard that in favor of the lie the authoritarians tell to protect their own egos. Bullshit. Gotta
Yeah.
stop.
And it's funny because you said something about not being able to attach a document to an email. Because one of the most effective ways to reach Congress these days is still a fax machine.
Mm.
A fax machine.
Fuck.
Because
Yeah.
because they
Sending
can't ignore
smoke
the
signals.
call. They can't ignore the call, and your email won't go into the spam filter. It'll print, and by law, they're required to keep it. They
Wow.
can't they can't throw it away. So, yeah, one of them in Texas, that is the preferred way in some lawmakers' offices to reach
Wow.
them is by fax. Who the fuck has a fax machine
Yeah.
in their house anymore? You know what
We
I mean? Like,
we
what
should
the
go set
hell,
one up
bro?
though where it just sends like a million faxes. It's like just on robo faxing them all the time. So it's just like
Y
beep,
you know,
beep.
that in Texas, that's kinda how we annoy a lot of our lawmakers. We fax the hell out of them
Oh
nonstop.
God.
Nonstop. We just clog up the fax machine. Um But we that's wh this the society we live in, bro,
Oh man.
like, you look at all the advancements in technology all over the world, and we're still using fax machines to reach lawmakers.
I think my
Yeah.
I think my mom still has a fax machine. I should tell her to do that. It's like
Yeah,
this is the
my
most
stepdad
effective.
does. My stepdad has a fax machine,
Oh,
but, you
fuck.
know.
Well, we're over an hour. I love talking to you, Arturo. I
Yeah.
gotta let you have your day though at some point.
Yeah, I got stuff to do and run around, do errands and stuff, mow the yard, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Well, oh, anytime though, and like I keep having you on my radar, and it's like there's so much on my plate right now. Stuff
I
keeps falling
know.
off. I want to get back to you anytime, but reach out to me anytime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I got to get you in with some of these candidates because they got to hear the stuff you're saying, and we're influencing them though. I mean, take heart, everybody in the chat too. Wonderful crowd here today. It is happening. It's slow. It's like erosion. It's like growth, but they're hearing it. And once you only need a little crack, it's like
That's
you only
right.
need that one, a little bit of truth will combat metric tons of lies. They
Well,
know that.
when it comes to erosion, right? At some point, you're digging into that big old bank of sand. Eventually, a big old chunk falls off, right? Icebergs, same thing. Big chunk falls off. We're on the cusp, I think, of that big chunk, and I think if we just keep pushing harder,
Yes,
we just might see it sooner than we think.
I think so. I hope so. Take heart, everybody. It's always my pleasure and my privilege to talk to you, Arturo. So
Yeah, same man. Likewise, it always goes so fast too.
I know my
It goes
brain. I got to go
fast.
take a nap now, though, because my brain's like, oh, all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
All
Yeah,
right. Thanks, everybody. Love
brother.
you all. Bye bye.
Bye, y'all.